Welcome to the Osimo Early Bird Podcast. I'm your old pal Emac coming to you on a Thursday morning with one Adam Ship My Money Share. Adam, talk to me. We're getting into a little bit of a rhythm here. We've gotten some regular NBA. We've gotten some regular podcasting down. How are you feeling about it? You had a big night the other night. I'm assuming it's because you did the podcast with me, of course.
Yeah, definitely why. It had nothing to do with it being Sunday and there being like no content out there and everyone being focused on football. It's because we did the podcast together 2 nights before.
There we are. See, I know this is how these things work. It's perfect. Well, I'll take credit for that one. Yes. Why not? Jermaine Kearse still killing me days later. I got to get that out of my head. But glad you had a good day there for NBA. And that's one thing you guys got to remember out there is oftentimes with the NFL, it dwarfs all the other content. So check us out in Slack, especially at Osmo Premium Membership. Give us a try for a week. Use the promo code EARLYBIRD. Get all the premium content. By the way, that will work now for the Fantasy Cruncher add-on. Again, that is promo code EARLYBIRD. No space, just one combined word. Adam, we're going to talk about the Thursday slate. There are 4 games for NBA. We, of course, are recording this on Wednesday night, so this is your first look podcast. Running down some of the news and notes and injuries. So we have Portland and Orlando. We've got Portland on the road, favored by 3, 217.5 over-under. They have Maurice Harkless, who looks to be about limited for the time being with a sore leg to 20 minutes, but he is playing. On the other side, Jonathan Simmons returned from his birth of his child, so he is back. He played 20 minutes in his return. Kind of going to expect that from him going forward. Not really great for him, but it just takes a little tick away from Fournier and Isaac and some of those other guys. Additionally, Timothy Mozgov out with a knee. I don't know that we'll see him play this year, but I did want to mention him. I had not realized he was with the Magic. Next game is Cleveland and Detroit. Detroit favored by 7. Good God. Andre Drummond had himself a game, a flu game, if you will. A nice little overtime there, one against Philly. The only guys that are slightly injured are none for Detroit at the moment. That would impact anything. The notes that we have is Drummond had the flu, but obviously after his good game, he should be fine as long as he made sure to hydrate in the 48 hours. Since then, he'll be excellent and in tip-top shape going against who knows who's going to guard him from Cleveland. I mean, Tristan Thompson nominally. But Larry Nance Jr. for Cleveland made his debut. He played 17 minutes. He's been dealing with a knee injury. And then the other news, Detroit, Ish and Reggie have been closing games together. We got to like that. Third game of the night, Boston at OKC. OKC is favored by 1 and a hook. 212 over under. We know that Aaron Baines is out with a hamstring injury. Marcus Morris only played 20 minutes in the last game. When the Celtics are at full strength, that'll probably be around where he is unless they go for matchups and somehow he gets goosed up another 5 to 7 minutes. But we'll probably see him around 20. But just wanted to point out he's been dealing with the sore knee. And then Gordon Hayward, of course, he's back, but not fully up to speed, so he got the day off, sat out one of the weekend days. So we may see that from time to time, but no news about him sitting out on Thursday, so he should be good. For OKC, Alex Abrines has been dealing with he got popped by the eye, so he has a sore orbital area. He is not in the concussion protocol, but wanted to point that out. Russell Westbrook made his debut, played 35 minutes. So he should be solid, good to go, no ill effects. The last game, we've got Denver and the Lakers. Lakers are on a back-to-back because they are playing on Wednesday nights. Denver favored by 4. This is the same Denver team that beat Golden State in the Pepsi Center in their last game. So pretty cool for Denver. Guys that are dinged up in this game, Will Barton is going to be out for 6 weeks after his hip surgery. That means Torrey Craig will likely start. He has played 23 and 27 minutes in those 2 games. Jamal Murray has been playing with the sore leg. He only played 18 minutes, but that was against Sacramento. And wait for it, he dropped 19 points. So solid one there. And then for the Lakers, assuming nobody gets dinged up on Wednesday night, Rajon Rondo is still out 1 more game, and Brandon Ingram is out 2 more games. Wednesday was the second of the suspensions for the chucklehead behavior that they had. Anything stand out there before we get into the real analysis, Adam?
No, I mean, I think most of that stuff we've already seen a game and been able to see it play out.
All right, let's look at the first game here, and then we'll turn it over to you because, again, I've been blathering on and on. Portland, Orlando. Portland favored by 3, 218 over under in this one. Nikolai Vucevic and what is his name? Oh, yeah, Yusuf Nurkic. I kind of like this one for both of them. Vucevic should be able to out-quick Nurkic. Nurkic should be able to bully Vucevic. Take it away.
Yeah, I think both are in an interesting spot. We finally saw a big game from Nurkic in that game against the Wizards. He's always a concern because his minutes are really volatile. They like Zach Collins, who is the backup center, and Nurkic can be taken out when the game goes small pretty quickly. But I don't expect Orlando to go small. We've seen Vucevic playing really well. We've seen his minutes trend back up after initially losing some to Mo Bamba to start the season. So I think this is a spot where it bodes well for both of these centers because they're both big. They're both athletic enough to, be on the floor together. And I think that we should see them both probably towards the top of their minute ranges here. And they should probably have success against each other as well.
All right, looking at the backcourt here, obviously Damian Lillard is a great option. CJ McCollum also very solid. It has come out that they are going to both be playing at the same time. They are not staggering their rotations again this year, and I know you're well aware of that because that was one of the things that you like to point out last year, that we got to see McCollum head out about midway through the first quarter, and then when he came back in and Lillard sat, he got the major run with the kind of the focal point of the offense in the second quarter. They made a concerted effort to have both of them on the floor at the same time, and while I would have thought that would not be great for them, and it's also similar to John Wall and Bradley Beal, and this was a nice article, I believe it was on The Ringer, talking about this, the Bill Simmons site, but they were saying that it's actually more efficient, and they've got the numbers backing it up and proving it. Granted, we're only 3 games in on this season, but McCollum plays much better with Lillard on the floor, and Lillard stays about the same. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Thoughts on that aspect?
Yeah, McCollum's usage has actually been higher this season than we expected, but from a fantasy standpoint, I'll rerun the numbers now, but I'm pretty sure that's not correct as far as McCollum being better when he plays with Lillard.
And this was from an advanced metric standpoint. They were not doing DraftKings or FanDuel scoring. So
okay, yeah. From a basketball standpoint, that makes sense.
Yes, it's one of those where you have to have the proper context. I guess I kind of buried the lead. The interesting thing is they're making a concerted effort to have them both on the floor at the same time and rest at the same time, which is a departure from what they were doing last year.
Right.
From that standpoint. Anything else you like here from the Trailblazers? Perhaps Al-Farouq Aminu, who had one of his excellent mid-teens double-doubles in his last outing.
Yeah, Aminu's okay. He's never someone that I'm really that confident in playing, but the price tag's still appealing at $5,000. He should play around 30 minutes. So, I think that he's fine. From the Orlando side, Aaron Gordon obviously always has upside. Evan Fournier is still pretty inexpensive, but Vucevic is the one that I'm most excited in.
All right, let's move along to the next game here. We have Cleveland and Detroit. Cleveland is coming in on the back-to-back after playing Wednesday night, so we will update any injury issues via Slack and in the articles that we run on Thursday. Again, this is Wednesday night. But we had a phenomenal game from Andre Drummond, a sublime career-high game. Now, granted, it was overtime, but career-high game for Blake Griffin, 50 real points. That is beyond impressive. He had 5 3-pointers. He had 14 rebounds, 6 assists, and a block, 35 field goal attempts. And the intriguing thing was I read an article about him, and they showed the shot chart, and they were comparing him to what James Harden does, because he had a nice spread around various points of the 3-point line, and then he had a bunch of stuff in the paint and really nothing in between, which is, of course, the new pace and space and the optimal shooting. It's better to take close in or farther out and get the extra point from a 3-pointer than it is to be in that no man's land. And he had a phenomenal game there. Were you on him at all in that?
On Blake?
Yeah.
No, not at all. I think I had
82 points, Adam. He had 61 the game before. I didn't play him either, so what am I saying?
Yeah, it was just an awkward price point, and I really wanted Jokic. I really wanted there was someone else I really wanted. I don't remember who was on the slate, but it wasn't Blake.
All right. How are you feeling about him this evening going against Cleveland, who's coming in a little tuckered out?
I mean, I like him. The usage has been there this year. I expect it to come back down to earth a little bit, but so far we've just seen monster usage out of him. He's also maintained a high assist percentage, not quite as high as we saw last season, but still up in the 23 to 24% range, which gives him plenty of upside there. He obviously rebounds as well. So yeah, I like Blake quite a bit, especially on the smaller slate where there's obviously less options.
All right. The mix of the backcourt there for the Pistons, we've got Reggie Jackson, Reggie Bullock, Ish Smith. Anybody jumping out to you at all? Ish Smith reasonably priced here on DraftKings, 4,400. Jackson creeping up just a little bit at 5,700, but he is getting a lot of shots up in his 3 games this season, starting from the first game, 20, then 9, and then 17. So that's good to see. Checking up the 3-pointers, he's got 22 on the season. Attempts, and he's got 9 makes, so solid there. The assists, we know we really never get a ton of assists from him, but I like seeing him shooting more and getting some of those minutes. Granted, overtime game in the last one. What do you like between him, Ish, or Bullock?
Yeah, I like both of the guards here from Detroit. I think this is actually going to be a really interesting spot that we can attack, especially in tournaments. The combination will probably go overlooked, but Reggie Jackson and Ish Smith have been playing a lot of minutes alongside each other. I haven't gone back to look at what they did on Tuesday, but I know going into that game they had closed 2 games in a row alongside each other. And then in Cleveland's not their game yesterday, but their prior game, Colin Sexton started finally playing minutes alongside George Hill. So I think there's a possibility that maybe you could see that quartet of guys, Jackson, Smith from the Pistons, and Sexton, Hill from the Cavs, potentially, maybe play a little bit more minutes than normal, because you could see some small ball lineups where you have the 2 point guards in the backcourt. So I think that's something that I'll dig into more, but that could potentially be an edge in tournaments.
All right. Looking at Ish and Reggie, they both started. So Ish, they both started the second half. Let's see. Reggie came out for about the last 5 minutes. Ish stayed in. They both started the fourth quarter. Ish got a breather there at the very last second. They brought in Stanley Johnson. It was probably some sort of defensive switch. And then they both played all of the overtime. So essentially they played from the second half through the overtime. Jackson was off the court for about 5 minutes, and Ish was off the court for about 1.
Yeah, so it's a good sign that we're seeing them play more minutes together. Ish's price tag still remains really, really cheap too, and people are treating him like a backup point guard when he really isn't.
Yeah, and a lot of it's because he comes off the bench, and then he doesn't. He and Jackson in the last 2 games didn't play at all together in the first quarter. So just putting that out there. But again, games that stay close, and if you have the guys that are generally on the closing unit, that is what a lot of people miss. Especially early on in each of the NBA seasons, until we get into about 6-7 weeks, then people start to figure it out. But as football winds down, some of the more casual NBA players also end up wandering away to other pastimes. But just want to remind you that sometimes you'll be excited, and I like to use Hassan Whiteside as the example. And hey, through 3 quarters, Hassan Whiteside is just crushing it. He's got 17 points, 14 rebounds, and 4 blocks. Wait, he didn't play at all in the fourth quarter. What happened?
Right.
So just a reminder, loyal listeners, that's what we've got there for you. Looking at the Cleveland side, intriguing work here by Shetty Osman. He had back-to-back 40 burgers to start the season, backed off a little bit there to the mid-20s. DraftKings scoring in his 3rd game. Of course, he's playing his 4th game on Wednesday, but intriguing matchup here with him. Just because he's involved in a ton of it. We know Kevin Love has just been outstanding. He's still at $8,500. He feels like about a $9,500 player without LeBron and without all of the other guys that were normally with him the last couple seasons with Cleveland. Not quite Kevin Love in his prime in Minnesota, but pretty darn good nonetheless. What do you got here for Cleveland?
Yeah, Kevin Love's been absolutely phenomenal, and I expect him to see less time at the 5 since Larry Nance is back, but I still expect him to be very productive. He has a 29% usage rate so far this season. I think that probably actually gets above 30% as the season goes on, and the price tag's still pretty low for a guy with that kind of usage who also is a very, very good rebounder. And so I think that's good. And then Chetty Osman's just playing huge minutes, 35, 37, 39 minutes, pretty much night in, night out. And he's been productive as well. The price tag's still cheap. I think you can go to him in any format. And then, like I said, George Hill and Colin Sexton, both really cheap. If you're going to play one, I think that Sexton at 3,800 with the potential for more minutes to match up with that Ish Smith and Reggie Jackson lineup is the one that I prefer. But you can go to either one because I think they should both be able to stay on the floor together.
All right. Do you think that there's any intrigue at all? And it is eight total teams in the player pool, 4 games on the slate, going to look at George Hill or Rodney Hood. They're both 4,500 on DraftKings. But again, we're going to need a few cheaper options. We obviously don't have a ton of injuries that are unknowns or anything we're waiting on here. So we may not get too much surprising value. So we're going to have to use what's given to us. But Hill and Hood, I feel that Hood has the upside and Hill just is infuriating to me. What are you looking at? Or would you go with Sexton for 700 less?
Yeah, I mean, I prefer Sexton out of the group. Hill's fine, Hood's fine. You can even throw in Jordan Clarkson, who, maybe closes over Hill or over Sexton or something in, a 2 or 3 guard lineup.
Hey, just like the Lakers did in that trade, they threw in Jordan Clarkson. But yeah. I'll be here all night. Moving on to the third game of Thursday, we have Boston and OKC. OKC favored by 1.5, 212 over under, as we mentioned previously. Russell Westbrook, absolutely in MVP form. He is going to be one of the candidates for top play of the night. Of course, that means that Paul George may be a little bit overpriced, but we do need to think about him not having Carmelo Anthony getting in the way. What are you looking at here from the 2 stars of the Thunder?
Russell Westbrook. It's Boston's defense actually hasn't been very good so far to start this season. Maybe struggling a little bit with Kyrie and Hayward. Hayward obviously coming back from the bad injury, and Kyrie just being Kyrie. But so I mean they've struggled a little bit. Westbrook obviously looked phenomenal in his first game back. Playing his normal minutes, should be able to get about 36 minutes tonight. He's still inexpensive too. 10,500 is a really nice price tag for him on DraftKings. He's going to dominate usage. He's going to dominate assists. He's pretty clearly a top play, and he's inexpensive.
All right, I'm just checking out here to see what the Thunder were doing. It looks like obviously they will be bringing Dennis Schroeder off the bench. And this is a 1-game sample size, but he did get about 8 minutes at the end of the first quarter, and then into about 40% of the second quarter without Russell Westbrook. They both overlapped a fair chunk in the third quarter with Westbrook starting and Schroeder finishing. Looks like they had about 4 minutes where they were not on the court at the same time. And then fourth quarter, they put their best guys out there, and Schroeder's going to be out there in the closing units a lot. What do you think about Schroeder in a game like this, which I don't know if this one's suited for his skill set? I just kind of feel on a game against, as you mentioned, not Boston's defense is struggling, as is every defense at this point in the year. I just feel that they have enough systematic stuff that I see most of things funneling to George and to Westbrook, and perhaps this is not really a Schroeder night.
Yeah, it's going to be real tough, I think, to trust him alongside Westbrook. He did get up 16 field goal attempts in that game against the Kings, 22.1% usage rate, and his DraftKings price pretty quickly fell back down to earth. So it's not the craziest play, but it's still just, I think, going to be tough to trust him on a night-to-night basis as long as Westbrook's around.
Yeah, plus, decent defenders there with Smart and Brown and potentially Rozier, et cetera. So just a little tougher matchup than we might see typically. What do you have here for, and that apparently is my crutch phrase, let's look at the pivot position to change things up. We've got one gentleman from New Zealand in Steven Adams, and then we've got Al Horford. Transition us. Do you like one or the other? Neither, both? What do you got for us?
I prefer Adams. He's someone that I expect to produce a little bit better now that Westbrook's back. More just the familiarity and getting assists from Westbrook. They actually correlate really strongly together as well because a high percentage of Steven Adams baskets come on Westbrook assists. So that's a way to increase your upside in tournaments. So I like him. He's a good defender. He's pretty, especially around the rim. He's not as good getting away from the basket, but Horford, I would rank behind Adams.
All right. Working your way through the Celtics. Horford at 6,000, not too shabby. We know that Baines is out. We've got one Mr. Jason Tatum that is at 6,600 there on DK. He has been pretty solid to start the year. Marcus Morris, we did mention, potentially could be somewhat limited to about 20 minutes unless they really, really need him, or depending on matchups. With the sore knee, he is slated to play, of course, but he's kind of situational for anything to get him over those 20 minutes. Take us through the Celtics.
It's really tough to trust any of these guys because they have so many capable bodies, but on a 4-game slate against an Oklahoma City defense that I expect to struggle because we've seen how bad they've been since last season without Andre Roberson, mixing and matching these Boston guys that are pretty inexpensive is probably a good way to go. Kyrie's price tag is appealing at 7,300. Tatum's been phenomenal at 6,600. We already talked about Horford, being decent, but Jaylen Brown at 5,100 has, some upside. Rozier and Smart, if something weird happens in the game and one of them lucks into a few more minutes, there's upside there. So I think the approach will probably be to just, mix and match those guys throughout lineups because it's going to be tough to be confident in any one of them, but they're going to score points as a team, and chances are, one or two of those guys have big games.
All right, speaking of big games, that gets us to the last game of the evening. Again, the Lakers coming in on a back-to-back here after playing on Wednesday. They're hosting Denver. Denver, road favorite, 239 over-under, Adam. 239 over-under. Wow. What do you think the odds are that LeBron James and Nikola Jokic actually both triple-double in this game? It's like
pretty high.
4%? 10%?
I would probably go higher than 10%, like 20 to 30%.
Oh, it's so in play. Can we play both of them? Where are we going to find our cheapies, Adam?
Yeah, I think that's where, like, those Boston guys we talked about, mixing and matching them. There's value there. It's just a matter of figuring, guessing right. And the same thing with the Cleveland backcourt. You have 4 guards that are $4,600 or less on Cleveland. And at least one of them is probably going to have a good game, maybe 2 of them against a weak Detroit defense. So there's certainly value. It's just not value that you're going to be super confident in. And so kind of spreading out your exposure and mixing and matching and then running a core that gets you, Jokic and or LeBron, I think is going to be the way to go. So you can find the value there, but then also there's going to be some value on this Denver team itself because with Will Barton out, you're going to see Torrey Craig, who is not a high fantasy point per minute producer, but he is a hustle guy. He can rebound. He'll play defense. And this is the kind of game at this pace where he can kind of just run into extra stats and pay off that price tag. Juan Hernan-Gomez would be a pivot off of him. If Craig were to get in foul trouble or something, Hernan-Gomez would be the direct beneficiary. And then I'm pulling up Popcorn Machine now. In the first game that Will Barton missed, Trey Lyles still played all of his minutes at the 4, which means that the injury doesn't really affect him because he's not taking over any of those minutes at the 3. They all went to Torrey Craig and to Juancho Hernan-Gomez. Looking at yesterday's game, it looks like more of the same. You saw Trey Lyles play solely without Millsap on the floor. Yeah, every minute that Trey Lyles played yesterday was with Paul Millsap sidelined. If you look and see that Lyles played a bunch of minutes in the first half, he played a little over 10 minutes in the first half. Millsap left early with 2 fouls. So it's really tough to project heavy minutes for Trey Lyles because of the way that Mike Malone's running this rotation. But if he even plays, 21, 22 minutes, he certainly can put up big numbers in this game against a fast-paced Lakers team.
Yeah, and big numbers would be what? Flirting with a double-double, maybe a 10 and 8 kind of.
Yeah, 30, 35 fantasy points.
Okay. What about I got to add in Mason Plumlee, sort of the afterthought. Feels a little steadier, but not having the upside when you add in his price on DraftKings compared to Torrey Craig, or pardon me, Craig or Lyles. But he's another guy that's in that same mold that these guys are going to kind of cap each other depending on who's on the court, right?
Yeah, I mean, he's playing all of his minutes at center this season, which means that he's at the mercy of Nikola Jokic. But on a 4-game slate where you're going to see, obviously more concentrated ownership than on bigger slates, it does make sense if you're a multi-lineup guy to have some lineups where you fade Jokic and play Plumlee, because if Jokic gets in foul trouble, which, I mean, it happens, Plumlee's going to come in. He's going to play in a phenomenal spot for him where he's going to rack up stats, and he's going to be, virtually unowned because people aren't going to play a backup that's projected for 14 minutes. So it's an example of a spot where to win tournaments, you need outlier events. And if you solely rely on projections, you'll get in trouble, because if you're just projecting Mason Plumlee for 14 minutes, he's never going to be in your lineup. But if you think about alternative ways that this game could go, one of the obvious ways to get a potential edge on the field is to have lineups where the very popular Nikola Jokic, for whatever reason, does not play his normal minutes, and you have his backup just passing everyone. So certainly if you're playing a bunch of lineups, have some Mason Plumlee, just don't play him with Jokic.
Yeah, the one other thing to be completely cognizant of, Monte Morris is going to seem a little bit appealing. The starters for Denver did not play in the fourth quarter in their last game against Sacramento. So it was basically Morris, Lyles, Hernan Gomez, Malik Beasley, and Plumlee that ran almost they all started the fourth quarter. Most of them were in there with 4 minutes to go in the third, and most of them took it all the way through. They brought in a couple deep bench guys for the last 2 minutes, and you're never going to have heard of these guys unless you were a college basketball or Euro basketball fan. That would be Thomas Welsh, Devon Akun, I don't know, his name's cut off, and then Tyler Lydon. So just saying, It was a bit of an ass whooping. So some of these guys that were cheap that got stats, they were at the expense of the starters sitting for the entire last full fourth quarter.
Yeah, Jamal Murray also picked up 2 fouls in the first 3+ minutes of the game. So that's why Monte Morris came in so early in the first quarter and played so many first half minutes, was because of Jamal Murray foul trouble.
Anything else for the Nugs?
No.
All right. The Lakers, of course, we mentioned that Ingram and Rondo will both be out. Kuzma's price is dramatically up, as it should be. He's been playing a little small ball 5 there. JaVale McGee might now be back in play once again, because he's actually a somewhat mobile big and could be, I don't know that he's the perfect matchup going against Jokic, but if they want a big body out there, then he could be the guy to do it. Josh Hart's price has come up, but remember, he has the ability to get a ton of rebounds. I prefer those guys. Starting from Hart going up on the price list, talk to me about that Lakers starting 5.
Yeah, I mean, obviously just they're going to get out and push the pace. There's going to be good plays from this game. The price tags are getting up there. We've seen DraftKings pretty aggressively increase these prices with Ingram and with Rondo being out. LeBron's price tags actually come down a little bit, though. So it's getting to where it's a little bit easier to afford him, and his lack of production, I mean, he's still been really productive, but his lack of production, relative to kind of what we expected, is less concern at a sub $11,000 price tag. Kuzma, I'm not sure how much center he'll play this game. It'll be really interesting to go and see what happened on Wednesday, because he didn't play much backup 5 in his previous game, but that was a game where it was just a really weird rotation where in the second half you had Zubats and you had Jonathan Williams getting minutes when they didn't play at all in the first half. JaVale McGee was in foul trouble, so I'm not sold that he's done playing as many minutes at center. So it'll be interesting to see what happened last night in that game against Phoenix, especially because Phoenix also has a traditional backup center in Tyson Chandler. So if we do see Kuzma just soak up all of those minutes, we can be confident that he's going to do it against Plumlee. If we see the Lakers go to, a Zubats or Jonathan Williams instead of Kuzma at the 5, then we can expect them to do the same against Mason Plumlee. I expect Kuzma will play big minutes regardless. It's just a matter of if he's playing on the wings or at center.
Zubac's line in the overtime game against San Antonio, 5 minutes, 0 for 1, a rebound, a block, and 5 personal fouls in those 5 minutes.
That's pretty impressive. Wow.
Good times. Good. Well, wait, the opposite of good times. All right, that runs us through our plays here. Any final thoughts before we get on out of here?
No, I don't think so. It actually seems like a pretty fun slate for 4 games.
It does. It feels like one of those super duper West Coast abbreviated late night Saturday slates. So This will be a good one. We should have a lot of fun. Reminder, you will get all sorts of premium content there at awesemo.com. Use the promo code EARLYBIRD, one word. Get yourself a free week of everything. And yes, that now does include the Fantasy Cruncher add-on. You want to try your hand at a little mass multi-entry in the Quarter Arcade? Here's your chance to do so. We've got projections for all of the sports. That would be a PGA, NBA, NFL, hockey. It's a good time. Not too many sites have hockey projections. I've been cashing in our hockey contests, Adam, using mostly just Fantasy Cruncher and Jake Hari's hockey projections and figuring out which hockey lines I'm going to mix and match together. And it's been a little bit of fun. I'm enjoying that, and I'll have a little more time on my hands to do that some more. So just pointing out, we got all that good stuff behind the paywall. Of course, you've got the strategy show that you can check out each weekday morning. It'll be a variety of characters, mostly Lofty, Adam, and Josh Engelman. And then on Saturday, we're going to reprise it. We're starting a little bit later. We want to make sure the West Coasties get out of bed, but we're starting that around, probably 11:15 or so with Adam and myself on Saturdays, and that will be a regular feature going forward as well. We have a little more time to take a more relaxed look at some of the games, talk some strategies, and just kind of break things down a little deeper. We won't always break everything down, but we will cover and go down some rabbit holes and see what's going on and give you guys, the viewers, a chance at seeing how some analysis is done and how you can say, gosh, I see a situation here. Let me dig in a little deeper. What sources and resources am I going to use? And that's been a lot of fun and a lot of great learning shared by the excellent DFS minds here at awesemo.com. We're going to get on out of here. You can follow Adam at ShipMyMoneyDFS. You can find me at EMACDFS, and it is awesemo_com. That's awesemo.com instead of the dot. On Twitter, you got to use the underscore. Good luck, gamers.